I still think you should at least try and get a ward there, try and deny them, delay them. But the option for Splyce was get the Mountain Drake. That is obviously a benefit in its own right. Still think they could have contested ever so slightly.
I agree with you there, Stress. I think there's always a possibility of that. And you say it's a little bit nitpicky, but the way that both of these teams have played, and Rocket especially, has been so clean in this early game. There haven't really been any glaring errors where I say, well, they made a mistake there, their macro wasn't good there, they didn't trade effectively there. And this is the sort of game we would expect from playoff contenders, from second, first in the group teams. Splyce, of course, looking for that first spot, albeit temporarily today. Yeah. And Rocket challenging to go ahead of G2. Something a lot of people would have thought unthinkable.
Yeah, right now they are tied with G2 in series. So it's...
Gonna go in onto Senkus here on the top side, warded with the flay back, tanking up the tower. Here comes the TP. Senkus knocked back, seismic shot on Jarnan as Trashy gets the damage down onto Wadid. Just about survives, but here comes the Void Rush. Trashy with a kill. Jarnan dies off towards the back of it as well. It's only Faxi up against 3 members of Splyce, and he's gonna get knocked up. Unburrow gets the kill. Double kill for Trashy. Splyce get 3.
Good flash knock up there from Trashy. Mid lane, the response is the Rift Herald was summoned. Now they go on to one.
It has unleashed power. That's wonderful for Rocket as they take down the Rumble. They'll look for the tower as well. There's a pause. It's all right, guys. All the action's finished.
For now, at least. Pause coming out from the Splyce side of things as the Rift Herald had pushed up towards the second tower. There was a lot to digest in that last 30 seconds of the game. Overall, Rocket extend their gold lead ever so slightly. The kills did go over to Splyce, most of them going to Trashy. Just a really intriguing set of plays.
So it ended up being a 3-for-2 trade in favor of Splyce in kills, but mid lane tower went to Rocket, and they're looking for a second tower as well. So there's a possibility that Rocket actually get the favorable end of the trade. And I want to come back to that as well, because we just talked about how Rocket are playing so cleanly. And even here, this was relatively clean for a bit of a botched dive down towards bottom lane.
Yeah, it starts out well for Rocket in the sense that they get onto Senkux. Senkux is not expecting this amount of damage from Hyana, but you can see Wadid actually misses a lot in this exchange. It's only
just
the
too tanky, Stress.
The Flay finally catches Senkux out before the rest of the fight. Then in comes the Rek'Sai ultimate to take out Wadid. Kobe is able to pick up one in response. And then we had the flash play come forward. So that was the bottom lane exchange that Splyce were able to turn around. And that's what their composition can do. Between the teleport and the Senkux ultimate, when they do get to use it, they can actually get on top of people quite quickly to turn around situations into their numbers.
I want to talk about the groups as well here, Stress, for a little bit as we still have this pause going on. Because up until we came into group play, it looked very much like the groups were even. You know, you had standout members, Unicorns and H2K, Fnatic and G2. But after seeing Fnatic demolish H2K yesterday, and now seeing Splyce on the losing side to Rocket thus far in this game, can you say that Group A is actually more stacked or stronger than Group B?
Oh, that's always a loaded question.
Yes, it is.
It feels like it currently. Is, I think, what you can say on that. I don't think it's definitely the case, because there's so many questions I have for G2. Like, everybody just takes G2 and they're like, okay, these are the best guys in Europe, this is the best team, everybody else is, you know, supposedly a step down, but that's not the case right now. So you got to look at, like, the Rockets, the G2s of the world. Maybe they are closer to where the top of Group A is, but what about Unicorns Fnatic? That's a matchup I want to see. What about Unicorns G2?
Unicorns G2 is a match I want to see, and that's coming up straight after this series as well. But we still have at least 2 games of action, or 1.5 games at least, Stress. Yeah. And these teams look very, very close. I think if you take away the early kills in the bottom lane from Rocket, that first blood, this game would be very much more on a knife edge and not erring towards Rocket's favor. We do have some information about the pause. Wonder pause because of an issue with the damage from Rumble's equalizer. The league officials are reviewing the play, and we'll get you more information as soon as we can. I know the officials work very hard on making sure that all aspects of the play are covered when this sort of thing goes up.
Yeah, we, of course, as you said, we're waiting for league officials' review of the play. There was a significant amount of damage, but we'll see how that all pans out. As honestly, we talked a little bit about that play from Splyce in the bottom lane, turning it back around against Rocket. I feel like some of that play could have been neutralized. The Rift Herald having this potency in the middle lane. We talked about maybe contesting it a little, pushing away Pride Stalker from that area. It feels like Splice are playing a very reactive game here up against Rocket, rather than being proactive on their own exchange. And that's something I think they're going to have to adjust here. It works well when you have scaling side laners, but right now the Rumble only going to have impact in team fights. The Taliyah, most of the impact is going to come when you cross over to the rest of the team. So I kind of want to see them start forcing plays, utilizing some of these ultimates.
It feels more like the Splice of a few weeks ago who had these 1-3-1 compositions, who had the split push possibility, rather than Splice with a team that really wants to team fight. There were times, Stress, when they tried to make plays up towards that top side. We saw Faxi have to back away as it was Trashy and Senkux who went up there looking for the ult to cut Faxi off by the tower, but they've never really been able to pull that trigger, and it felt time and time again like Rocket are just half a step or a step ahead of them across the course of this game.
Yeah, it certainly feels like it, and a lot of that came from their young jungler, Pride Stalker. Actually, the impact he had was way more than we've seen in the previous weeks.
Exactly, and Pride Stalker in Challenger Series took a while to wake up as well. It probably took him about 4 weeks to wake up, and we are now into week 4 of the LCS as well. League officials are still investigating the issue reported by Wonder. In the meantime, let's send it to Shox for a look at the early game.
Thank you very much indeed. Wonder pausing because of an issue with the damage from Rumble's equalizer is what he reported to league officials, and they are right now investigating and reviewing the play. So we're going to review a bit of the game as well. And Henning, they were talking about Group A being stronger or weaker, and you just think, well, hey, Group A is clearly stronger.
I mean, before yesterday, I think you could make the argument for either side. And now Fnatic just 2-0 to like it's no thing, and now I think you've got to go with Group A.
And especially now that Rocket is putting up such a good performance in this game so far, and very interesting to me. Obviously, Pride Stalker, we had so many question marks for him, and I can't help but wonder that the fact that he stole away some of the buffs, which netted Rocket a lot of advantages in the games they ended up winning, might have been kind of a mental de-blockage for him, because in this game, he seemed to have all the reins of the Rift.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the issue that people have been having with Pride Stalker has been the mechanics of the game knowledge, just like the confidence to go for the place. And right now he's like ganking bottom lane level 4 as Warwick just fear flash right into the back line together with the good setup from Wadid. So I think that Pride Stalker is definitely playing well this game. I think Warwick is a pick that fits him.
Yeah, if we take a look at the picks and men's in just a second, I was very interested to see the new Rek'Sai. And Rek'Sai has always been a favorite of Trash together with Gragas, a champion that can be quite tanky, can go into the middle of the team and engage. But when it comes to the early game, do you think the changes made in 7.11 and then 7.12 would be a reason why he got put behind a bit in pressure by Warwick? Or is that champion in Hearn, or what was going on there?
I think the thing about Rek'Sai right now is that she's not necessarily...
Queen of Desert.
You got to keep track of that. But she's not necessarily weaker than before. I think that she can put up at least as good of a jungle clear and early game skirmishes. So I don't think that the rework of the champion is a reason that Trashy has not been able to keep up early game with Pride Stalker. I think it's just Pride Stalker communicating better with his lanes, and I think there's better gank setup for Pride Stalker compared to Trash.
Yeah, it must have been much more proactive than he has been. Something that you were speaking about as well when Kennen was left open and we looked at the picks for Wonder.
Yep.
You really thought he was going to go for that. Why in the end do you think he didn't and opted for the other pick?
I think that's Splice's style. They really like to have Wonder on a winning matchup in the top lane, because then you can have Senkux on these supportive mid laners like the Taliyah, like the Aurelion Sol that can roam to the side lanes and help him out. And just have Wonder winning the side lane and then keeping up with the split push. This game, though, they did not go for the Kennen when it was available to them. They went for the Rumble instead and got sort of soft counter-picked by a Gnar, which means that in the extended trades in a long lane in a 1-versus-1, Gnar is going to be able to out-pressure the Rumble. So even though Wonder will be able to contribute more to a team fight, in the extended 1v1, Faxi is going to have the pressure, and I think that's not really going with the style that Splice have been playing with before.
Yeah, that has worked for them in the past. So you think here they're banking more on the team fight and maybe, you know, the new ultimate by Rek'Sai going in there, focusing up one target, getting the Rumble ultimate to zone off the rest. Might that be the plan?
Yeah, I mean, last week they were able to out-team fight the Unicorns of Love, which is saying a lot.
Yeah.
So I think that they might have adapted their style from last week and go from these more sort of a team fight-focused comp. This is like a team fight comp with a strong early game, and I think that's something that could fit Splice after what we saw from them last week. Right now, not doing too well in the early game, though, and that's where this... I mean, they should be somewhat strong in the early game, and it's not working out for them.
I do have an update, so I have to interrupt you for just a second. League officials, they have determined that there was indeed an issue where Rumble's equalizer did not do damage to caster minions, and officials are now meeting with the teams to discuss further action to take. So we will be updating you as we go on, as we were speaking about Splice, their team composition and the plan in this game, because we haven't been seeing much of a plan, sadly, and I don't think that's too much to the detriment of Splice, because Rocket has just been playing extremely well, and not just in making early moves, but also capitalizing on it and taking objectives, which is a huge leap for them.
Yeah, I mean, taking these towers are very important, especially when you get the split pusher in the Gnar versus the Rumble. So having the Gnar like in just a normal 1-versus-1 lane with the Rumble, you're not going to really be able to punish him. But if you have the extended lanes, if the towers are down, especially if you got like a frozen mallet on the Gnar, you can just chase down that Rumble, and there's nothing that Wonder can do against that effect. So I think that trading the towers in the side lanes here is beneficial for Rocket. We also got to see that on the map right now. As the pass is coming in, the mid lane tower tier 2 is actually getting sieged down for Rocket. So if Rocket would be able to get both tier 2s on the top side of the map, that would just give them such an immense control over the top side jungle.
Yeah, I do believe we have a replay of that we can pull up where there was a skirmish in the bottom lane, and in the end, both teams are able to capitalize and focus more on the map and get some towers off it.
So Shax, tell me, what does Kalista and Thresh do? This duo...
They hook and they shoot people.
They are so good at saving each other. Look at this. They're able to like get from tier 1 to tier 2 tower in like 1 second because you got the Fate's Call and the Lantern. If you're Splice, you should know this. You should know that they will be so good at just getting away from the gank, and Rumble TP completes towards the bottom lane. I'm not sure if that's the correct choice. They are able to trade tier 1 bot and tier 1 mid for 2 towers top, but as we see after this, Rocket also are able to pick up the Rift Herald, which allow them to break open mid lane. So in the end, I'd say this is a beneficial trade for Rocket, and I think that after this, they have about a 1.5k gold advantage against the team comp from Splice that should be decently strong in the early game.
Right, they also take the Rift Herald, because in the end that would have been advantageous for both teams, or kind of even, but they take the Rift Herald, so they have a card in their back pocket for later if they get a bit of pressure in each of the lanes. Where do you think they'll want to put that pressure, or where do you want to put the push the advantage out? Is mid lane now the priority for them?
Yeah, for sure. I think we actually saw them use Rift Herald in the mid lane before before the pause went down. I definitely think that's the right choice. I mean, if you can choose any lane to bust open, it's going to be the mid lane for the jungle control, and especially when you already got 2 towers on the top side. I mean, when it comes to the Baron setups later in the game, Rocket can just go into the enemy jungle and find the picks, and there's not going to be any towers for Splice to run away to.
Yeah, I think that's crucial here, because they do have Foxy, and maybe it's also a bit of Foxy did not have the hottest games maybe recently, and Gnar is kind of his favorite pick, or one that he has been doing really, really well in historically, and it fits now, and especially now that the top half of the map is entirely open for Rocket, they'll be able to utilize that to their advantage. And what can Splice come up now with a plan? They have the team fighting comp. Where can they push an advantage? Because it's not so easy when you're being pushed back, and maybe in vision also to just pull the trigger anywhere.
You do not I think my problem with the team comp from Splice is that you don't really have the clear engage tools. When you have the team fighting comp, you really want a way to open up the fight, and I don't really see that here. Sure, you can maybe get the Rek'Sai flank in with a tunnel, or you can have like a Rumble ulti or a Varus ulti to catch someone from range, but they don't have the way of forcing a team fight. If they're able to get a team fight, though, for example, if Rocket takes an objective and they're able to come and interrupt them, if Rocket comes at them and tries to engage, they have so many great tools to do this. They have the Chain of Corruption, they have the Strangled Thorns, they have the Equalizer, they have everything to just lay down the AoE damage and punish Rocket.
Nice to see that the crowd is also still enjoying. They're all dressed up as well. And Grabs is like, oh my god, I'm finally winning another game. Can we play? I don't know if you can hear it. Hi, guys. All right. Well, I also hope that we can get into game in just a bit as well. And looking forward, maybe something we haven't touched on is a mid lane. Betsy, we've said, well, he's good on these control mages and that he doesn't really have to do the all-in all too much. And Syndra is a champion that he is going to have to make the plays later. And Sankux, on the other hand, was also someone that we were looking at that had been having a big champion pool. He pulled out the Aurelion Soul. He's been having a bit more influence. How do you think the influence of both Talia in this game and then on the other side of Betsy on Syndra is going to evolve?
I was a bit surprised to see these picks in towards the mid lane, because these are 2 mid laners that have very peculiar champion pools. Like, they really have their own style. Betsy's most played champion is the Vladimir. The most played champion for Senkux is the Aurelion Sol.
Yeah.
So both of them really have this like kind of weird way of playing the game, and now they're going towards Syndra and Talia, 2 of the like standard go-to mid laners. Mid lane so far actually it looks like Senkox did have the pressure on towards Betsy, and that Talia versus Syndra matchup was able to get a lot of tower damage, which ended up being very valuable when Splyce was able to come in and get the tower.
Right. Well, we've been talking for a bit. I am going to reiterate that League officials are still investigating the possible bug reported by Wonder about Rumble damage not being done on the minions, and they are now deliberating what the next steps are in this process specifically. And, well, I kind of feel like we've exhausted the theorizing over the game specifically, so let's go a bit beside the game and maybe look at a bigger scale things, because Splyce is a team that we'd expected, or for them to go back to the higher regions. Martin's always saying, or Martin Linge, the official, is always saying, this is Summer Split Splyce, so this is where it's going to come all online for them. But it does seem that Rocket seems to have the upper hand in the slower macro game, which is surprising to me.
It is a bit surprising to me. I mean, the strong laners that Splyce was able to draft, I think that's just a testament to that they fear falling behind in lane, so they really want the strong laners so they don't fall behind, and then they're confident in their team fighting capabilities. But as you said, right now Rocket seems to be getting more towers, getting more objectives, and I think this is due to Trashy not being able to keep up with Pridestalker, and Pridestalker getting that early advantage in the bottom side. I think he's just going to be able to keep punishing Trashy unless the Danish jungler is able with the Lucky Glasses, was it?
Yeah, he tweeted that he was undefeated special on the glasses he's wearing right now. So anything you can get to help. Well, we'll see how it evolves in this game. And in the context of the group for Splyce, obviously, they definitely want to win this game. They showed that they can beat the Unicorns of Love, so it would only be odd if they took another step down now. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, they're contesting for the top spot with the likes of Unicorns of Love and H2K. And with H2K losing yesterday in like a pretty convincing fashion, like it's definitely like the initiative could be there for Splyce to take that first spot in the group, and especially since the Unicorns have a tough matchup later on today as well, going up against U2. A lot of it's gonna be up to the Splyce to. I mean, they could run away with the group at this point.
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to move on. Luckily, so to catch you guys up, League officials have investigated a bug with Rumble's equalizer, but have determined that the issue does not warrant a remake, and the teams will be playing through. So let's send it back to Medic and Stress to get back on the Rift.
Thank you very much, Shox, and welcome back to the Summoner's Rift. Stress is here, just hiding behind me for the time being.
And we're getting ready to head back into the game. Okay,
there we are.
So at this point, we need to reset some of the game for you. Just, remember where we are here. So we just had the play on the bottom side coming this Splyce turn around. And we're currently in a situation where Wonder was trying to hold mid against the Rift Herald push. Had a Warwick jump right onto him. And Rocket looked to try and get further on in that mid lane push. That's where we ended up going. And we are back into the game. You can see Rift Herald just about to expire in that middle lane. Didn't achieve the second tower.
Still did get one, of course, so it's still an equal trade. 3 kills to Splyce, 2 kills to Rocket. Rocket get that tower in the mid lane and a bit of a chunk off the next tower as well. A 2,000 gold lead for them, 20 minutes in.
Yep.
And they're starting to pick up items across the board. You see double items completed onto Hyanan, Morello Nomicon, and almost that Neandries as well for Betsy.
Yeah, and of course, Rocket have been ahead for the majority of this game. If you are just joining us, it comes from a set of early plays that Rocket made in the bottom lane, getting Pridestalker into the lane, utilizing the Thresh Lantern gank on this Warwick, and they managed to put Trashy behind as well for the majority of the early game. But right now, Rocket looking to continue some of their aggressive play. Bottom tower is finally going to go down to the hands of Hyanan, and Wadid has been very mobile on the Rift, getting between the lanes, making sure he has impact.
And that's something Wadid has just done so well throughout the split. His Thresh as well, one of his most common picks throughout this summer split, has been absolutely devastating. His hooks, reminiscent of Jez's yesterday with all of those flash hooks he landed for Fnatic. Kobe's actually gone for second item QSS as well. Pridestalker's going to get caught out by Trashy. Kobe's here as well, no chains to come down yet, but Senkox will get a tower for Splyce. That means it's 4-3 on the tower score and 4-3 on the scoreline.
Yeah, very quick demolition game here out from Rocket and Splyce. And of course, Mountain Drake, first of all, did go over to Splyce early on. The Rift Herald went to Rocket. Ooh, just a split-second difference there as Senkox was recalling out of the top side before Hyanan and Wadid actually put a ward in that bush. Managed to just get out in time, but you have to feel like this favors Rocket. A composition that can very easily take one member of Splyce out. With this Syndra, with this Thresh, the Warwick is going to be very difficult to deal with the longer we go.
However, Splyce can try and find ways to deal with it. Banshees was the first item for Senkox, the QSS, as we said, for Kobe. Mickey can always get a McHale's, although that's slightly out of build for the Zyma. Can dodge, can flash away if you want to. And if ROC go for that aggressive play, try and pick someone out and aren't able to connect onto anyone, then perhaps we'll see Splyce be able to turn it around. They've got great zone control with their composition.
Yeah. And this is where one of the dangerous areas come from, is the fact that ROC are pushing forward with wards behind them. Senkux is trying to come down towards the little lane. Yeah, here comes the Weaver's Wall. Where's the teleport?
Yarnan gets knocked back and he has no way to escape. The hook onto Trashy into the box. His Pride Stalker as well, though. Yarnan is going to get knocked up. It's a 1-for-1 trade as ROC retreat. The equalizer comes out. Splits were off from the rest of the team, but Senkux is unable to chase any further. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Faxi continues to push.
Yeah, once again, Faxi having the impact outside of the team fight here. Didn't choose to teleport down, but is able to push.
Camera here, by the way. So, can see Faxi here. That was Mega Gnar on the big screen and Mini Gnar on the small screen.
Just able to,
yeah. Get it stressed?
It's a two Ronnies joke at this point with you and I. Although if you're the big Ronnie, that means I'm the funny one. So I don't think that's completely true.
No, I'll take that. Your pun game has been on point.
A lot of people not from the UK really confused about that, but just...
Well, my real name's Airman as well, so it's a Ron.
Ah.
A Ronnie. Yeah. Anyway, ROC now 5 kills to 4 up still, only with that 3,000 gold lead. Have some vision control in the river, but if you look at Splyce's vision as well, they've got good control wards on their red side, and they are spotting out any aggressive plays from ROC.
Yeah, and ROC have been more of the active team. We talked about this a little bit before we headed to the analyst desk, where it seems like Splyce are trying to be reactive, and this was the first play utilizing the Taliyah ultimate that we've really seen this game, and that's what Splyce were doing very well against the Unicorns, is making the plays, taking the team fights to them. And that was why that win over the Unicorns was quite surprising, because usually nobody beats the Unicorns at team fighting and skirmishing.
Exactly.
Everybody just falls to them, and Splyce said, nope, we're going to win this game, and 2-1 on the series. Really impressive.
Unicorns obviously just didn't have the right anti-venom for the day. Splyce spitting that poison towards the cats that are ROC, but ROC at the moment seem to be immune. They're setting up vision around this Baron. Radid can clear out that ward if he wants. Don't need to. It's a control ward there anyway, so it's no vision granted for the Splyce lineup. ROC are going to go down towards this mountain. Drake, of course, Splyce picked one up for themselves earlier on, and because the map is so open now, it actually can make it harder for ROC to find a pick, because Splyce have a lot more opportunity to roam around without having to stand near their towers.
Talk about having the right anti-venom and that. I thought Harry Potter taught us that, like, unicorn blood gave, like, life properties, and you should be stronger from it.
You have to drink it,
I mean, okay, I guess Splyce didn't figure that bit out last week.
That was the problem.
That's why
none of them look like Voldemort.
That's true. They've got to a point where they're not taking the lead in the game. They clearly didn't listen to Professor Quirrell and Philosopher's Stone, but something you've got to listen to in this is at least the way ROC move towards that Baron. With the Callista, with the Gnar, you'll be able to take that down quite quickly. So if ROC do end up going over there, taking control of the Baron pit, then Splyce will be in a little bit of trouble. That's why they're putting so much focus around it right now with those wards.
Actually, something we've seen so well from both these teams this game is trading of objectives. So there we saw ROC go for the mountain, and Splyce said, okay, we'll get vision around the Baron. We'll make sure you can't sneak that one away from us later on. Even with Faxi continuing to push up towards that bottom side, Splyce have been able to react a lot of the time, and it would have been very easy for them just to fall behind here and lose out because of ROC's strong early game, but they've kept it within this 3,000 gold marker, and it means that they always have a chance in the game. Trashy's going to jump in, Bessie gets knocked back, rooted down, that's a shutdown for Splyce.
Couldn't even trade for Mickey's life, but here comes Wadid and Yarnan.
This is brave. This is so brave from Wadid and Yarnan. Fate's call comes out, knock up onto Trashy. Here come the rest of ROC. They're trying to catch Splyce between ROC in a hard place, but Trashy does so much work in the front line. That's a kill for him. Faxi, the last man standing for ROC, as Splyce absolutely destroy ROC.
Two fractured fights in Splyce's favor. Good flash from Senkux.
Faxi's still going in, though, does get the stun. The barrier comes out, Seismic Shove comes back, but Faxi's not knocked away, and Senkux is gonna fall. Faxi bringing some hope back for ROC.
Yeah, Senkux is sticking around a little bit too long. That will be a detriment. No side lane Baron buff for now, at least in one of the lanes here. Wonder will have teleport available, so he can go out towards the side lane. Faxi can match it and try and play the 1 versus 1 now that he's got the frozen mallet. But this fight all started with that catch onto Betsy. Flash knockup didn't quite land as Betsy flashed it out initially, but Trashy was able to at least get the knock back by the looks of things and was able to at least continue that fight. Then Senkux cuts off Tianan and Wadid from the long escape from this, and Trashy just takes up a lot of the Roccat time here. Good Zyra ultimate. Again, zoning back Roccat, splitting the fight in half, and from there, Faxi, he's built for side lane split pushing, but that doesn't mean he won't deal with a pesky Talia. His Flash came out already. Senkux still wanted to fight. I think that's the problem, is once you've already got away from this situation, just let the Mega Gnar go. You're going to lose that fight.
Senkux, no flash. Going to get jumped on, no flash. As you say, here they come, all of Roccat. Just appear from thin air, and Senkux is dead once again. That's
a great response, and I'd love to have seen the setup on that a little bit more out of Roccat. See how they got into that position without Splice actually figuring them out, because, of course, Splice should have had those empowered recalls.
Faxi does have another flash away from Mickey. This is so good from Faxi.
And this is why it's one of his picks. I mean, it doesn't look all that flashy, but Faxi comes in, just walks up to someone, gets a flash twice in a row now. That has translated into kills and tower kills, because look, bottom lane, very low. Mid lane, low from the Rift Herald push earlier. Means Roccat have a lot of gold just waiting to go in their favor.
And Splice have the Baron here. Yeah. Splice are the team that won the last fight, and they are the ones on the back foot. As Roccat make a great pick down towards that bottom lane. As you say, superb setup by them to do that. The gold basically even between these two teams now, and this is such a close fray between these two guys.
So this was the setup. Thank you very much to our observers for getting this in our view. The lane was pushed up far enough that Senkux didn't see anybody come up. Faxi jumps the lane first. Senkux thinks he's just about safe, and it's an easy pickup for Roccat to get that first kill in that bottom lane since the Baron buff was picked up.
Tianan and Wadid standing still outside of the bush, because obviously Trashy can't see them anyway, so it doesn't matter if you're in the bush or outside of the bush. Just looks really odd when you see it. Faxi's going to jump in onto Mickey. Here's the base corner as well. They know there's no flash for the Zyra, but the equalizer is going to come down, and that's going to burn straight through with it. Roccat lose one. Splice have one taken down as well as Trashy gets onto the back line, but Tianan's doing work. Cobby chasing up against Betsy. Betsy wins that one. Senkux the last man standing once again for Splice.
And it's 1 versus 4 remaining in favor of Roccat here. They've already got themselves a team fight win. Now they move towards the mid lane, and up against the Baron buff. Roccat have completely neutralized Splice's pushing power because of the lead that accrued earlier on.
Look at how well Roccat have played this anti-Baron buff. They're going to get an inhibitor tower out of it, actually extend the gold lead. They'll get the inhibitor as well, and Splice, after coming back into the game and looking like they were on the front foot, have been absolutely rocked by Roccat.
And Pride Stalker, he's on for a personal best. Previously, he had accrued
50 damage a minute.
He had accrued total 3,500 damage on Warwick across all of his games. Because of fights like this, he's broken it in 1 game alone on his Warwick. And you can see Roccat just in full control. Cobby taken down on the side. Betsy had an easy route into that fight. And Roccat have broken the Baron buff of Splice and pushed them all the way back to having a gold lead again.
3,000 ahead for Roccat now. And I think the story of Pride Stalker in this game and in this series thus far is one of the key turning points for Roccat. He has had such an impact in this game. He has been devastating from basically minute 3. And Splice just haven't been able to deal with him. Trashy, you know, has had some good plays, but Pride Stalker has always seemed to be that one step ahead, that one move ahead of this Splice lineup.
And the interesting thing is, while there was the Zac ban, the Elise ban, the Kha'Zix ban, we saw Trashy have good performances on Lee Sin. We questioned whether he could play the Lee Sin a couple of weeks back, and he actually showed up, looked very strong, opting for this Rek'Sai. And Rek'Sai is by no means a bad pick, but it just doesn't have the same impact, especially from behind. It is so difficult, because Rek'Sai is a 50-50 champion, and you're dead.
Not really 50-50, there's no smite on the enemy team. Wadid's going to land the hook onto Mickey. Tianan has to use the QSS. They get the Dragon, it's an Infernal. Splyce going to retreat.
And what I mean by 50-50 is Rek'Sai is neither a carry nor a tank.
But Pride Stalker's carrying this Roccat lineup now. Gobi's going to try and trade back onto him, but just does not have enough damage. And actually, Roccat just looking for the push down mid here. Is this a little bit too brave? There are still 3 members of Splyce left alive. Senkus has to flash the hook. They're looking for the Nexus Towers, but here comes Kobe, and here comes Wonder. What can they do to wall in Roccat?
Thing is, Pride Stalker's around now as well. Roccat have their whole team strong. Roccat are going to back themselves away, and you can see just how easily Trashy got taken down. You're not tanky until you've got 3-4 items on Rek'Sai. It's not like you get this massive boost of health early on, and it just means you can get bursted down after going this warrior build. This is where Roccat go for it. Trashy must have died incredibly quickly, barely 2,000 health to his name here, and down he goes. That's a lot of damage first, and then Roccat were indeed able to get the hook over the wall. The only thing that maybe makes this fight less so in Rockat's favor early on is the fact that Hyanan got chunked early on, and they weren't able to continue into the same way. Hyanan was moving towards the mid lane, and Roccat decided to splinter off.
They do get another kill.
Yeah, they do, and I mean, it goes their favor. Like, you can't argue that.
I think the call to go for the Nexus probably was a little bit greedy from them, with 3 members of Splyce still alive and the 3 damage dealers still alive as well. The wave clear from Varus, from Talia is just a little bit too strong. Faxi's gone back to his split push, though. Has the teleport if he wants to join this fight around the Baron in about 40 seconds' time. Splyce setting up there. Look at that gold swing just for a minute. Or 2, Splyce were back in the lead, but Roccat have just slowly worked their way up this mountain, and the mountain seems to be reaching its peak.
That is astonishing that Roccat have been in control for so long of this game, but it has been quite collected for the most part. Just those couple of fights that went in Splyce's favor earlier, managing to get the Baron for themselves. Well, the next Baron's up in 10 seconds. And Faxi is already pushing back Wonder on the bottom side. This is the side lane control we were expecting. 2 levels up. Faxi is level capped right now. No more experience to go in his favor, and that means he's just crushing through Wonder right now.
That he is, and come back to how clean and how methodical this has been from Roccat. Even when they went behind, they didn't look anxious. They didn't look like they were going to make mistakes. And I think a lot of that comes down to the sports psychologist that they picked up at the end of last split. Mental strength from them has been incredible throughout this first game. And when they beat Fnatic, it was the same. They fell quite far behind in that second game with Faxi totaling a lot of deaths.
And that was something that Roccat themselves talked about, talking about how it helped them settle as a team. Of course, the changes with Maxwell coming out, we don't know, or at least going to the Misfits lineup, don't really know how that impacted the team behind the scenes, but it looks like they're playing some of the best we've seen all year, at least here up against Splyce.
And Betsy was saying, when Price Stalker came on, he said, I think he's mechanically better than Max Law. He just doesn't quite have that shot calling yet. And it seems like in this game they found, I don't know if it's Price Stalker, but they found a shot caller, found someone who can make them make those plays in the early game, make Pride Stalker be that little bit more aggressive, be that bit more on the front foot. And now actually Trashy is caught out behind Faxi here. The Narm into the wall, the suppression. Trashy just locked up for days. Will try and jump away, but he jumps straight back into the Roccat team. What did is low though. It's going to be a 1-for-1 trade as Roccat do just have to back away. Can't take anything more against Splyce for the time being.
Yeah, Roccat used a couple of their big ultimates there with the box. Hyanan's ultimate as well, Faxi's ultimate. They can't really look for round 2 on this fight. That means Splyce get a moment here to at least secure some vision control around the Baron, because Roccat did just all recall away. And this Trashy going around underground vision, not exactly the easiest.
Trashy was free to get caught out by the Roccat lineup.
I don't really know whether the Wombles
that was the
made
Wombles
it to Denmark.
Possibly not. The Ronnies probably didn't make it either,
no,
but we're going with as many English references as we can today. British references, sorry. Gonna go for the Baron once again.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll just chunk that one down. I've had videos on.
I've had enough of my co-casters making fun of the Welsh for enough of a split.
Well, at the moment, Roccat are going to secure the Baron. No contest from Splyce as Trashy was all the way back in base. And now Roccat with a Baron buff. Will it be their undoing like it was Splyce's earlier?
You have to figure that with this Gnar built for the side lane, able to just continue to push, Roccat having the strength they already have from their gold lead, when it comes to fighting power. Plus, they got an Infernal Drake on top of that. They should be able to kind of walk this one in, almost. Although, we've talked about damage. That's quite a lot of damage just in itself coming from Mickey.
Typical Zyra support player there.
Yeah, well, you know,
most damage in the game.
We were looking at supports to build Locket, and maybe a Redemption. Knight's Vow. No, Mickey's still got Leandries and Sword Boots because he's Zyra, so why not?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, that makes sense.
Also, you're not focused in a lot of fights. Actually, Faxi's being focused up towards the top side, and Rocket are unable to react to this. Faxi will burn down as Wonder gets the Flame Spitter out, but he manages to jump across the minions and across the wall. Here comes Pride Stalker. Wonder has the flash. Rocket with 3 members in the mid will look towards the inhibitor. TP in from Faxi as well towards topside.
Faxi just absorbed both carries from Splice for a while, just enough that they could get the mid inhibitor and now the top inhibitor tower as well. Baron buff still remains for 2 minutes longer. And with the Elder Drake coming up, it should be easy for Yanan and Wadid to take this, even with the Rift Scuttler vision there. This is a Rend Callista, remember? So there's no real way of Smite stealing through.
Splice are making a beeline for it, though. They're going to see if they can contest, but already 3,000 HP on that Baron is going to be a pretty easy Rend for Yanan, and there it goes.
The opportunity there, though, is if they wanted to fight. Faxi, of course, didn't have teleport available, but he was out of vision in the topside jungle. So it means Splice didn't have full information that that was, in fact, a fight they could take. But recalls all come through. 1 minute 30 on the Baron buff left. Means that Splice still have a lot of work to do to defend here.
Have a huge amount of work to do. Elder Drake with an Infernal and a Mountain. Baron buff as you stay with still a minute and a half. And a 7,000 gold lead for Rocket. Look at these items. Betsy has a Rabadon's Death Cap completed. You've got completed item build basically on Faxi in the top lane. 80 carry only half an item away.
Yep.
Rocket are sitting very, very comfortably in this game.
Banner of Command for Wadid as well.
Oh, baby.
Just making sure he's got the full push here.
No longer gives AP, of course, on 7-12, so makes a lot more sense on a Thresh than it used to.
Yeah, and still has the viability of everything you're looking at when you look at Rumble wave clear, Talia wave clear. You deny a lot of that still. It's didn't really change, but Splice want to engage. They cut off 2.
2 members on the wrong side. There comes the equalizer. Price is going to get death. Lanterns away, and now there comes a fight. Trash is just dead. Again, like he just disappears in the middle of the fight. Tries to use the void. Just the hook! Onto Wonder. He gets pulled back. He's going to try and turn this one around as Mickey puts the damage down onto Pride Stalker. Wonder's dead. Rocket still have 5 members left alive. Make that 4. As one gets shoved back. Faxi looking for the Nexus towers as the rest of Rocket will push down in the bottom lane. That will be the first Nexus tower falling just about. How does that go to Wadid? It's the banner of minion. Bob doing work there for Rocket. They're looking for the Nexus. They want to go 1-0 up. Senkux knocks back. Kobe flashes in. Is it too little too late? I think it is. Rocket clean up the fight. They get all 5 members of Splice, and they will get the Nexus as well. 1-0 to Rocket.
And they did it, winning a 4 versus 5 in the bottom lane as Faxi with the Gnar took the taxi all the way to the Nexus. Make sure they got the win on this one. And that is a very different Rocket than the Rocket that beat Fnatic. Even so, they won against Fnatic, now winning game 1 against Splice. That was a 3-1-10 game out of Faxi. Dominant performance out in that side lane, coming a lot from the draft, of course, but Rocket playing very well around things that typically we don't expect out of Rocket. Syndra for Betsy, good pick for him here as well.
And I think we have to come back to who we focused on in picks and bans. We said it's on Wadid, it's on Pride Stalker. They're the ones that really need to step up to be able to carry this Rocket lineup. Wadid played incredibly well. 14 kills out of 19 he was involved in. Very strong roaming. And then Pride Stalker as well. 13 kills out of 19. Early game focus from him. Great damage across the board. As you say, in this one game, he's done more damage than his entire Warwick career in the LCS. It was just so much cleaner and so much more macro-orientated and so much better strategically from Rocket.
It was, and we have to look at that Rocket playstyle and how Splice played a different playstyle that they have succeeded with as well. I see where Splice were going with the draft. It does make sense, but at the same time, this hasn't been what we know Splice can do, right? it didn't encompass the 1-3-1 setup effectively because they were running like a teamfight pick with a rumble. The Rek'Sai isn't necessarily a split push that sometimes we would previously see out of the jungle as well. No more since they changed Rek'Sai. And I just felt like a little underwhelmed from Splyce. I think Roccat did very well. I think Splyce didn't really live up to what we've seen from them.
Well, Roccat did get the win to start off the series. Shox and Henning are ready to tell you more.
Well, thank you, Medic. And I actually think, the hanging, is he going to get a fist bump? Yes, smooth. All right, I was going to say that Medic and Stress's height difference is kind of an allegory for how the match went. And then Medic is Roccat and Splyce is Stress. And, well, what I wanted to highlight especially is that Roccat impressed me so much in this game because they did everything right. And no matter how good, of course, if Splyce was more on the ball, they could have offered more counterweight. But if you look at everything, the goal difference over time, except for that little dip, the kills that we can't see here, but on every single one of the carries, Betsy having a huge game, Pride Soccer having consistently a lot of kills and engages, Foxy rather doing his job, also racking up some kills, but especially with the key on that split push and then the bottom lane, which always delivers, and the objectives. Man, it was just all good for Roccat.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm impressed by Roccat. This is a textbook split pushing like play style. Like if you're playing like Gnar and Tryndamere and stuff in solo queue, go watch this game. This is how you're supposed to do it. Not like my solo queue top laners is just like runs it down top and tries to hit the tower. No, you have to ward the jungle, you have to wait until you have pressure on the other side of the map, you have to get all these things ready, and then you can go to the sideline. And that patience is what impressed me the most about Roccat. I mean, they got the bottom lane tower really low like early on in the game, and then Foxy did not like sacrifice himself to get the tower. He waited, and then he got it.
Systematic. Yeah. And we saw there in the goal that there was a dip for Roccat and a tiny resurgence for Splyce. It is where you pointed out they'll be looking for some team fights. They're looking for some picks because they do have a good composition for that. And our first replay is we're going to take a look at that one moment where Splyce said, hey, we are still here. And they managed to get a pick on Betsy.
Yeah, gets a good pick on towards Betsy right here, and this is what they want to do. I mean, they pick a losing matchup for Wunder in the top lane just to get the stronger team fights, and this is going to be the team fight afterwards. And this is where Splyce is really strong. This is exactly the kind of fight that they want to take, and like just having a 5 versus 4, that's just icing on the cake at this point. So fighting with like Siren, Rumble in these sort of tight corridors in the jungle, it's exactly what Splyce wants to do. Before this fight, before the pick onto Betsy, Roccat had a 3k gold lead afterwards. Splyce gets Baron and equalizes the gold count, even though Syncox gets caught out by Foxy.
That's so frustrating. You're a tank, well, an off tank, but you still tank.
Yeah, doing a lot of that AD damage, and I think this is just... I'm not sure if the Rumble pick was worth it, honestly, for Splyce. They pick it to force the team fights. They were able to do it like once in the entire game, and just losing out in the top side matchup. It's not what you want.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, especially seeing that in that fight, it did come down to kind of pressing the Zhonya's at the right moment, engaging at the right moment, positioning, because even though it was a 4 versus 5, Roccat was very far ahead. So Splyce shows that they are very good at skirmishing, and they kind of have a resurgence, but it wasn't long. Roccat immediately right after get another fight, or a bit later, they get another fight, they get a couple of kills, they turn on to Baron afterwards, they turn on to Elder Dragon afterwards, and they just play it out super correctly.
Yeah, for sure, Roccat just knows what to do on the map with this sort of split-pushing composition. They also have a lot of pick potential with the Syndra and the Thresh. As soon as someone on the side of Splyce missteps, they're going to be caught out. You can't say the same for the side of Splyce, though, as they really didn't have any way of forcing the fights with this sort of team-fighting composition, which is really something that you do want.
Yeah, let's take a look at one of those team fights for Roccat, then the ones that they had a couple of very well-placed ones. Combined with the split push, it was absolutely detrimental, and combined with Kalista, who obviously can net you the objective the minute you get an advantage in a team fight after.
Yeah, such a decisive shot calling from Roccat. They just know exactly what to do. Everyone goes at the same time, and Foxy just from being able to split push on the side, and absolutely huge. Betsy also makes so quick work onto copy there.
I don't really notice it in fights like this, but Pride Stalker, we say he's done good throughout the entire game. What is his job as Warwick in a messy fight like this?
He's the big front line that's just supposed to be disruptive. He's getting in there and everyone has to deal with him. They have to do something about him. He's not a huge damage dealer, but he's something that...
He's in your face.
He's in your face, he has to be dealt with, and with the damage reduction on the E, that's going to be very hard to do.
Yeah, I was also impressed by Betsy. I said it before in the it's not a brief pause, in the pause, that Syndra is a pick that usually I wouldn't associate with Betsy too much in terms of carrying, but he stepped up. He did fantastically, as did the entire team. And, well, they net themselves a win. They could be on a way to 3 straight series wins if they can win that next game. So what is it going to come down to? Splyce wasn't able to play their game. Is there a change here? You don't want to see the Rumble, I don't think. Is the Rek'Sai part of the problem? What would you change, Henning?
I think Splyce has to change up the draft. They cannot be happy with what happened in the first game. So either get a winning matchup for Wunder in the top lane, maybe get the cannon as they could have gotten this game. Or if you really want to go for this team fight heavy style, which could also work out, you have to get some sort of an initiate or a big engage. Like, you can't rely on Trashy landing the flash and burrow on the Rek'Sai, because that just didn't. I don't think that happened like once throughout the entire game.
All right, well, they are discussing it right now. Splyce, we'll see what happens. ROC, they look to stay on the winning track against Splyce. Game 2 is right around the corner. Stick around.
Mid lane and bot lane though, we see junglers going in. Motherfucker's gonna jump in onto Cobby, flash away the hold the hands, and Nick is already brought his flash. This is gonna be first bot to Rocket. Eden Yarn, big score comes out, knock him onto Trashy. Here come the rest of Rocket, they're trying to catch. Splyce presume Rocket's in a hard lane, but Trashy does so much work in the front line. That's a kill for him. Back to the last man standing for Rocket, and Splyce absolutely destroyed. Onto Nicky, here's the base corners. Well, they know there's no flash for the Zyber, but the equalizer is gonna come down, and that's gonna burn him straight through with it. Rocket lose one, Splyce is out. One taken down as well as Trashy gets onto the back row, but Yarna's doing work. Cobby chasing up against Betsy. Betsy wins that one.
It is so difficult because Rek'Sai is a 50-50 champion. Oh, and you're dead.
Gotta go 1-0 up. Sankux knocks back. Cobby flashes in. Is it too little, too late? I think it is. Rocket clean up the fight. They get all 5 members of Splyce, and they will get the Nexus as well. 1-0 to Rocket.
Welcome back to Game 2 between ROCCAT and Splyce. ROCCAT have a 1-0 lead and look to seal the deal with a win here. They are also on the blue side for this game. Just what was that?
Sencooks was like this. I was like, maybe we do that every time now. Trevor and I did that yesterday.
If you told me, that would have been great.
It's okay. Look, sometimes we just got to go, like, follow the flow. It's okay, Medic. Don't worry. It's fine.
I just feel left out now. I feel like Trevor is in this sort of in club and I'm on the outside, just standing here in the rain. You even locked me outside yesterday in that storm. That was very rude.
Isn't that what our country voted for? I mean, let's be real. But I want to talk more League of Legends at this point because, wow, I actually killed him. He's really laughing so hard he had to hit his mute button. But what is not a laughing matter here, Medic, is the fact that Pride Stalker, Game 1, looked superb. It's the best performance perhaps we've seen this split out of him. With this Warwick making it work, with Deed in the bottom lane, Lantern Gang comes through, and from there, Pride Stalker was just always active. And I think that was the thing. He didn't get first blood and just do nothing. Constantly looking to get aggressive, get fights going, and that's what ROCCAT need, really.
Incredibly strong play by him. Actually doubled his usual kills and assists at 15 minutes as well. And it wasn't even that he was always ganking. It's that he took the ganks he needed to take. Got that first blood in the bottom lane, and then from there was willing to farm up. Actually out-farmed Trashy by quite a bit in the early game. And just continue to harass and pressure where he needed to be. And I really like him on this Warwick pick as well, because it seems to suit his style. Played a lot of Kha'Zix in CS and in the playoffs as well. Those sort of skirmish-heavy junglers that have high damage output when they need to.
Yeah, and the other pick he was known for was Rengar, which fell, obviously, out of the meta. Rengar not really often picked anymore. But with this Warwick maybe being a pick for him, we criticized him heavily in the previous games. Low damage, didn't really have impact. Well, seems like he found his groove utilizing that jungle support synergy, and I think that's something Splyce have to be very aware of now going into Game 2. ROCCAT are going to likely play around the same thing again.
So if you're General Jeeves and you're standing there and you're managing your troops and you're deciding how you want to place them on the battlefield, what do you change? Because the Lee Sin was free for them if they wanted it. We could have gone for a different AD carry instead of the Varus. There were a lot of different variables for them.
There were so many options coming out of Phase 2 bans, where you look at it like they could have looked to have picked a matchup for a Kled in the top lane. If you wanted Talia, you could have locked that in as the first pick, knowing it would likely be a Syndra, and then looked for a Kled matchup in the top lane. Don't really know whether that was what Splyce were particularly wanting with the rest of their draft, since it seemed like with the Rek'Sai, perhaps they weren't wanting a disengaged mid-style and play out on the side lanes, but still, it's kind of curious that Splyce went so far away from what has worked for them. And I want to see them come back and just say, okay, we're going to win the side lanes, we're going to try and win the game through that way, because that's why Splyce have looked so effective.
And if you're ROCCAT, on the other hand, you just stick with what works. It was worked for them here, worked for them against Fnatic last week. They consistently seem to be able to topple these giants that they meet up against. And although Splyce maybe not in the same league as Fnatic or G2 yet, ROCCAT was still the underdogs coming into this week. And they seem to just have really stepped up their game whenever they meet a challenge.
And Splyce as an organization, we have to keep in mind, came in spring last year, in summer, had a great performance, went to Worlds through the gauntlet, and ended up being one of the teams that started taking wins. They kind of got crushed by RNG at times, but then I think got a win against RNG as well. But it worked better for Splyce throughout the summer split, and I want to see whether they can make it back to Worlds again.
And we are hearing from league officials that Trashy is not feeling well at the moment. The team have been given a grace period for him, and hopefully he'll be able to return to the stage shortly to get back on into the action. Of course, we want all of our players feeling as well as they can when they come into these games. You don't want to have someone who's not feeling well on stage or having to try and step up. And I think a lot of that Game 1 just comes down to how clean ROCCAT were as well. And that's such a step up for them. And it's the progression we wanted to see out of them as a team, because for a long time they were kind of hovering at the bottom of playoff spots, to be kind to them. In all honesty, when they were coming into Group A this split, a lot of people were saying, are they or NIP better? Who's last place?
And so many people were looking at that saying, well, NIP, they've got Prophet, they've got all of these things. Whereas,
they've got Nognan.
And I think a lot of people, you'd kind of put that up against each other and say, Faxi or Prophet? And a lot of people would be like, Prophet. But Faxi has had more success than Prophet had when you look at it. And that for ROCCAT has been a good thing, is they have kind of come together in certain games and put on good performances that have started earning ROCCAT a few more fans, a few more wins. Everything seems to be going their way for the most part, and they've gone from an organization that a lot of people were like, oh, they're at the bottom of the standings. in Spring Split. I don't think they're going to be around after relegations because Schalke and PSG are coming for them. They turned their fortune around, and now they truly are at least a middle-of-the-pack team here in Europe.
That they are. Trashy is confirmed he's going to play in here. He comes back onto the stage to take up arms with his Splice brethren against this ROCAT lineup. We are going to get into picks and bans as quickly as we can. Of course, just need to give Trashy the time to set himself up. If you're ROCAT here, we said, do you change things around? Don't think you need to, but is there anything that you think will change for them here? Do you think that they have the opportunity to draft slightly differently? Do they maybe not give something away? Maybe not give away a secret trick they have? Maybe not play the same composition too many times so teams can't read them too easily?
For ROCAT, we're looking at here? Yeah. For ROCAT, I think the problem is if they start playing those mind games with themselves and say, oh, we don't want to give away this because it's secret, I think you might end up not utilizing some of your strength here. And I don't think they're the kind of team that is in a position to do that. It seemed like Fnatic, maybe who were already sitting at the top of the table and looking very strong in multiple areas, can afford to do that. Not the same for ROCAT, but we are into picks and bans for game number 2. Side selection is the same as you alluded to. Bans so far are the same as game 1 as well. Elise, Zach, Fiora now gone. Kha'Zix's likely to follow with Twitch and Rakan as the last 2 from our first game.
Actually going to be a Warwick ban here instead of the Kha'Zix, so a little bit of adaptation there from Splice. ROCAT did choose blue side here as well, so Splice have been forced over to red once again. And ROCAT last game banned out the Twitch as their final pick, but maybe want to change things up a little bit here with that Warwick coming from Splice.
I think you have to... Ooh. Well, Blitzcrank has been seeing a lot more priority and presence, and if the Twitch does get through, you don't want Twitch Blitzcrank or Twitch Thresh to be picked together. Interestingly, Xayah went through the entire pick and ban phase last game and didn't get picked up.
Has really fallen down.
Rakan is here, and Xayah are both available for this draft, so ROCAT may very well be one of the teams to get Xayah and Rakan multiple times. I believe this would be game number 3 for them to have the duo together.
It's pretty spicy if you can get those together. The lovers leaping in that bottom lane. Splice looking for their support to start it off. It is going to be the Braum, and now have a wealth of options. Galio still on the cards if they want to go there. So the Renekton and Jace banned out in the second rotation last time. Still strong junglers with the Lee Sin.
Interesting to go Braum here. Only from the perspective that Thresh is very, very strong champion, can be played into Rakan, is a decent matchup. Tom Kench is a matchup that we're seeing very commonly, but I guess it makes a little bit sense now when you pair the Kalista alongside it. But you've just given Xayah over alongside Rakan should ROCAT want to pick it.
And they do, alongside the Lee Sin as well for Pride Stalker, so it is a all-bird bottom lane for the time being.
Braum's a pretty funny bird, but I guess
all-bird bottom lane for ROCAT,
yeah.
Snakes are known to eat birds, though, so perhaps Splice have something in the works, some strategy that they have prepared to reveal to us here.
And it's the Splice Flex. Could be Gragas in the top lane, of course, nerfs the Doran's Blade. Probably mean this is, not Doran's Blade, Doran's Ring.
You've got some interesting Gragases in your games.
I know, right? Likely going in the jungle for Trashy. We've seen him have great impact on this pick.
That we have, and we saw Soaz play it incredibly well yesterday as well for Fnatic. Some game changes moments for them against H2K. Now, Galio ban, Kennen ban as well from ROCAT. No surprises too much here, and next rotation, a lot of top lane focus, so we might actually see the Gragas flex up towards Wonder just to fill out that top lane role.
Likely Splice will leave their last pick in that case to be top lane. Could go for the Talia or something again in the middle lane blind. It's not the kind of pick that gets instantly countered by a lot of things, can do badly against assassins. Another one, Corki, was available in the last game that we saw Splice opt not to pick. That, I think, is a safe blind pick.
Oh, definitely.
For the majority, you can just take that and say, okay, well, you can play almost anything into this.
It's going to be Rumble again.
Same thing
for
again.
Splice up towards that top side. So it is the Gragas in the jungle, and they took the Gnar away from him. It's not going to be Heimerdinger. Don't, oh, come on.
But you can play Shen into this, which has side lane presence. Looking at other matchups, you can run into Rumble. It's likely going to be Wow, everybody's just booing at the fact it's not Heimerdinger. You really thought Heimerdinger was getting picked up?
Could be Camille here as well, though, in the top lane. Was buffed in this patch, 7-12, and a very strong split pusher. Does the same job as Fiora in a lot of cases. Splice have mid lane pick last here, unless they're doing some weird wonder flex that we just haven't.
No, I think it's likely, as you said, to be mid lane here. We saw Camille yesterday come out of Fnatic in the support role. That's not what it's going to be for Rocket. It will be that top lane against Faxi. I don't necessarily know how much I'm expecting out of Faxi on the Camille, but certainly a matchup that outside of the laning phase, the same kind of principle. You dominate out in the side lane, deny Wonder the ability to team fight with the team, and then you basically take the tower from behind him, and it can be difficult to deal with. But I think Splice, again, running a composition that is not their flavor that we have come to know from them. This one a little bit more focused around team fighting once again with the Gragas, with the Rumble, with the Kalista.
I'm trying to look through Faxi's games because I think this might be his first Camille game this entire year. And it's not something that is incredibly easy to pick up. I'm sure he's practiced it, of course, but a lot of complexities to that champion that can be played around. And with the Rumble changes as well, that adds another degree of depth to that top lane. So I'm really interested to see how that lane does end up playing out. Across the board, relatively similar compositions from both these two teams, doing the same things as they did last time. Rocket have a split pusher up towards the top side. Guys, if you want to get involved, make sure you do join the conversation on Twitter at LOL Esports, hashtag SPYWin if you think Splice are going to equalize the series, and hashtag ROCWin if you think Rocket are going to take it 2-0. We're going to get onto the Summoner's Rift in just a short second. But before we do, I'm going to let the crowd roar just a little bit. Look at that.
So that's more than a little bit. Crowd's hyped. See what the extra minute or so waiting for Trashy. I was worried there, Medic. I was worried.
I saw
like almost like Superman.
I've got scrubs on underneath.
I know, that's what I was going to say.
I've got my stethoscope in the back. I'd have Deficio run it out to me. Actually, probably have Dracos run it out to me.
More reliable. You'll probably find Deficio in the caster room, like trying it on himself for a while.
Taking selfies. Rocket 1-0 up against Splice, looking for another clean game from them, and they have some power picks across the board. Camille in the top lane, Betsy with his Syndra once again, and then the birds of a feather flock together in the bottom lane as Hyanan and Woodid get the Xayah Rakan duo.
30 seconds until minions.
I thought you were about to make another obscure British TV reference there with Birds of a Feather. I was like, I did not watch it. I can't follow this one. Yeah, I know, right? I tried to make a Price is Right reference in the studio yesterday. Did not work. Apparently, Price is Right did not make it properly over to Germany. It was called Die Price is Heiß for a while, but nobody watched it, and that doesn't matter anyway. We're looking at bottom lane. That's where we're going on this. The Winter's Bite does connect onto Hyanan.
Looking for the concussive blows, not going to be able to get out. Look at the deadly plunge into the junk. Mickey pushed back. Concussive blows comes out. The ignite is onto Mickey as well as Rocket.
Watch for the Rend.
For the first kill. The Rend is there. It just about survives, and now Hyanan gets some pressure down onto Kobe as well. Both supports go low, but neither dies.
Ooh, the irony is Splice actually played up against Xayah and Rakan and didn't, up against the Kalista and Rakan and didn't respect the Rend power that came, whereas Rocket this time able to kind of deny a lot of this early game presence. The ignite is down for Woodid. Woodid had a decent trade on that, and they will be able to push quite effectively early in this matchup. But this Braum does create a lot of trouble here. You kind of just run up, try and get the stun. Woodid saved himself.
Into exhaust. Hyanan has to use the heal and the flash. Ooh. Woodid with a 100% record thus far on Rakan, but didn't look like it at all with that play.
That was Woodid saving himself only.
That's how you win the game as support. Just let your AD carry die time and time again.
And that was flash used by Hyanan. Of course, you've got to now look at the health potion that was used by Hyanan. Of course, now Doran's shield on 7.12. You only can get one health potion with it because that slight cost increase means that the survivability, the sustain is a little bit lower for this Xayah, but still that push pressure has given them the level 2 early on, and Kobe and Mickey only just reaching level 2 themselves.
Lucian pick as well for Senkooks in the mid lane. He was someone we focused on early on in the first game, and now he needs to step up and actually pressure Betsy back in this lane.
Yeah, and he played Lucian in their first series. I believe it was against H2K and got ganked really early. Wonder has spotted Pride Stalker
I think Pride Stalker realized that as well.
Yeah, Wonder backed away. But Senkux really didn't respect the early game of Jankos in that first series on this Lucian. The Senkux was pushing up, got ganked, died, and really did nothing. So I want to see him not make the same mistakes, because here in Europe, haven't really had the most success on the Lucian mid. Only Febiven has been able to successfully pull it off.
Senkux went 2-5-2 the last time he played this Lucian.
It was not an impressive
It was the only series that Splice have lost as well, though, against H2K. So, still perhaps developed since then. I believe that was all the way back in week 1.
Yeah, it was the opening series of the split.
Oh, exciting time.
But it doesn't bode well that they're a game down and they picked the Lucian. Pride Stalker
on his way up top here, and Wonder will have to flash away from Pride Stalker if he plays this properly. Tempest Cripple misses the Sonic Wave, but does get the flash from Wonder.
Flash is already there, so unless Pride Stalker was able to get past the minions, hit that Q, would have been a tough gank to pull off. But still, there's the impact that we're expecting, and so much of what Splice has done has been built around Senkux and Wonder. And again, we're in a situation where Wonder is in a tough matchup. Senkux, there's still a lot of questions about this pick for him.
Mickey had an incredible game on that Zyra in game 1, or at least in terms of damage output. Second in the game, actually only 18 or so damage behind Senkux, who did the most across the course of the game. Just always boggles my mind that supports can do that much work from the bottom lane. Senkux gets caught out by Betsy, knocked back. Betsy, having already backed, picked himself up some boots and a Dark Seal, where Senkux went for the Doran's Blade.
Yeah, and of course, some champions will now not go the Doran's Rings that we saw a whole bunch of. Of course, Lucian never would have anyway, but it's only the mana stacking that doesn't work anymore. Still get all the health, the AP, all that goodness coming from the Doran's Ring. So if Betsy does decide to pick up another, not expecting it, but that would be the reason for it.
Well, Soaz did it yesterday on both Galio and on the Gragas top, so it still gives you all of the tankiness you need.
It's kind of matchup dependent now. We saw in the LPL, Gragas running into, I believe it was Jax, went one Doran's Ring into double cloth armor, which kind of makes sense because you're looking just in that 1v1 setup. Speaking of 1v1, top lane, Faxy's going to want to trade against Wonder.
Wonder's going the wrong way here, but Trashy is on his way. Faxy does have his flash. Flashes away from Trashy. That's respect.
Yeah, Faxy knew he was out of range of Body Slam Flash, but maybe a Flash Q slow into a Rumble Electro Harpoon might have been enough to get that kill. So played around it, played it with respect, just like Wonder did earlier when it was Pride Stalker ganking, but neither jungler having to expend a lot on these ganks. Just time that they really have put as an input.
Interestingly, we actually see a lead for Splice's bottom lane this time. They are a few CS up at the 6-minute mark, and their 2v2 trade has been incredibly strong into Kiana and Wadid. We saw how aggressive they went at level 1. This is something we've seen from Cobby and Mickey time and time again.
Yeah, and a lot of that is also a couple of the other aspects of sustain that Roccat don't necessarily have. This is a good trade now onto Cobby as he comes back into lane, but Hyunan's heal, Wadid's heal is kind of difficult to pull off. You land that Q, you then have to walk into your ally, but if the opponents aren't out available to be queued, Wadid can't exactly get a lot of health back. He doesn't provide a whole lot of health either without putting points in it. And
Wadid with the knockup. Mickey puts the Unbreakable down. Wadid just continually trading in, but look at how far away he can dance with that battle dance with the shield. Just jumps across the entire length of the lane.
Splice looking to converge on this bottom side, but I think they're actually not really going to find much here as Trashy backs away. The interesting thing is Wadid has actually put 3 points now in his queue. Something we didn't see supports doing initially with Rakan. Seen it a little more frequently, especially when you're running the Frost Queen's Claim route of items and that quest path. A little bit lower on the cooldown, and you can get a little more sustain from it. But once you complete that quest, remember when you hit the Q, you get the influx of gold. It also increases movement speed. So Rakan synergizes quite well with that. The quickness goes active, and you can charm everybody up.
Something I'm pretty used to is charming everybody up. We did also going for the Wind Speaker's Blessing in that bottom lane. No courage of the Colossus. Wonder's going to get traded on by Faxy. Of course, that shield comes up a little bit quicker. The adaptive defensive passive from Camille, slightly buffed in 7-12, alongside the Q damage. Pride Stalker looking for a little bit of a red steal here. focus was on PrideStalker in game 1 because of his early ganks. This game, he's struggled a little bit more. Splice have had the advantage down towards that bottom side.
I mean, it's been struggling in sense of ganks, of getting kills, but he's done a good job getting into the top side, getting the first flash, farming up, now stealing a red buff away as well. So I think PrideStalker, it's been a much more farm-oriented game, which is the Lee Sin maybe isn't exactly optimal of what you're looking at, but still good. He hasn't done anything that's particularly bad out for ROC so far, so I think he's in a decent spot. Looking to get topside, but Trashy is heading up there as well. Wonder now has his flash, Faxi does not. So this is more, I believe, of a counter gank than an actual aggressive approach coming out from PrideStalker.
Wonder comes down to place the ward. PrideStalker will get spotted by Trashy, jumps away onto the ward, puts the Sonic Wave down as well. Faxi will just back himself away underneath this tower, continually getting pushed in by this Rumble as expected. Relatively slow game for these two teams. ROC not being able to extend that early lead we saw them have in the last game. And you have to think this plays into Splice's favor, because even in the mid game when they were behind, they were able to win a couple of fights against ROC.
Yeah, Splice managing to kind of turn the tide at a couple of moments. For now, though, they're 10 CS up, top lane 10 CS up in the 80 carry role, and it's going to be a bit of a slow starter on this one. We have reached level 6, so Trashy can start to have some impact with bottom lane. It's just, ooh, I thought it was going to be defensive.
Mickey actually goes aggressive with it. As you say, I thought he was going to jump his way back. Kyonan continues to push forward. There's the Featherstorm, gets the Blade Caller back, and the root comes down onto Kobbe. Will it be enough? Not quite to get Kobbe down, but great harass from Kyonan and Wadid as they continue to push forward towards this tower. There's a TP in behind them. Wonder has the equalizer. Hyana's going to try and jump away, uses the flash, but here comes the equalizer. The stun used as well. Glacial Fisher and Splice just absolutely destroy the ROC bot lane. They're looking for more. Wadid has nowhere to go. That's another kill. PrideStalker does come in and equalizes it 2 for 1. However, in the mid lane, two people are ganking onto Betsy as well. Trashy has used his flash, and Betsy had to use his across the wall.
Looked like Betsy got a very important double stun there on the middle lane before the explosive cask was thrown out from Trashy. That probably would have spelled his death. But Betsy managing to get away, so actually managing to outplay. Bottom lane, it looked like Faxi TP'd in and cancelled it. Either that or he TP'd into lane before, as Senkux tries to punish Betsy for having no flash. Barrier was still there, so there was no kill pressure realistically.
Let's have another look at this bot lane, because Hyana and we did go aggressive.
Yeah, Hyana and we did go in. Remember, Mickey gets pulled back out by Kobbe here. I thought it was going to be a defensive play. So Faxi starts recoiling in the top side. That's who I'm keeping my eyes on. And Splice caught out by the Featherstorm. It doesn't look good. Oh, Faxi channeled his TP up to the top lane right before Wonder backs away. Channels his TP to the ward in the bottom lane. And that's what made it so that Splice could take that. Now we're back into live action. Mickey's in the mid lane. No flash, Betsy.
Double tap onto Betsy. He uses the barrier, tries to trade onto Senkux, but he flashes away from it. That's a kill. Syndra down in mid lane.
Doesn't matter whether it's bot lane or a mid laner and a support. Lucian Braum will always have great synergy. Double tap passive off that Winter's Bite means you can just lock Betsy down. And with no summoners available after that barrier was gone, Splice now in control of this game. 1,000 gold up. This is the position that they were not in the previous game. But PrideStalker wants to change that. Top side is where he's going.
Hextech ultimatum onto Wonder, puts the equalizer down. PrideStalker misses the Q and can't get there in time. Faxi continues to trade, but they cannot dive the Rumble.
And PrideStalker was no flash there, so it would have meant after the Q, he would have had to have followed up, tried to get the right angle on the kick. Wonder was still quite healthy. May have been enough damage, but at the same time, this isn't quite the same early game out of ROC that we saw in game 1 of this series. And now you've got to look at how that benefits Splice. They've got a Lucian that is ahead, a Kalista that is ahead.
A long way ahead. That's like 20 CS and a kill in that bottom lane,
This is as far ahead as Hyanan was ahead in game 1.
And the question then becomes, can Splice do what ROC did in game 1? Because ROC methodically closed out the game. There were a few hiccups here and there, but across the course of it, they were very strategic and understood exactly what they wanted to do at each individual point. Now Splice need to show us that they can do that if they want to be challenging for that top spot in Group B.
Well, that's one thing that I have a little bit more confidence in Splice doing than ROC doing. If you took a freeze frame at this point in this game and in the last game, and you say, okay, who do you think is more likely to just close this game out? Splice would be the one from game 2 here that you look at that you'd think is the numbers favor them, but still, That's just from a wealth of history of Splice being able to perform. ROC only recently have you really been able to give them that credit over the last few months.
It has been consistent over the last few months.
It has.
Splice sometimes have been a little bit more up and down. Some weeks great, some weeks not so good.
But it takes time for general consensus to solidify, to cement, and you know, have people truly believe that you can do that. It's the same reason why nobody's like, oh my god, G2, they're third in the rankings right now, they're awful, they're done, panic everybody. No, it's because for 3 splits they won the EU LCS, and you have to expect that they will come back and win. Whereas ROC for a lot of splits didn't perform. Now that they are performing, it's going to take some time. In games like this, while they're still quite even, you have to favor Splice for pushing down through onto this first tower.
We get first tower blood, and at 13 minutes in, they will be 2,000 gold ahead. Splice setting up down towards the bottom side as well as Shannon goes in, gets the charm, probably knocked up as well. Here's Pride Stalker. Fate's Call brings back Mickey. Splice just disengaged, but here comes Faxi. He's looking for the fray as he jumps in with a Hextech ultimatum, and Mickey is the target. Look at how low he is. The Sonic Wave hits. Here's Betsy as well as Splice might get routed underneath this tower. Copy there. Equalizer comes down as Wonder TP's in behind him with this up. It's all on Wonder. Can he turn and burn through this ROC lineup? He's looking for Faxi, who tries to trade back into him. Wonder overheats. Faxi with the adapter defenses, but here's Trashy to stop it in its tracks. Meanwhile, the rest of ROC somehow are in the top of the blue side jungle.
Yeah, they're trying to scatter because Senkux is heading through. No scatter the week comes out first because ROC right now are the ones on the retreat. They should get away from this. I don't believe Fjarnan was clipped by Senkux all that much, so he's just going to be able to run out through the top side. Doesn't even look for that execute. So, ROC make a play onto the bottom lane. Splice with somewhat of a reaction to punish ROC, but here's how it all started. Splice go aggressive, not really anticipating Pride Stalker to be here. They go in. Cobby gets locked down once again by the Feather Storm. Splice are on the retreat. And as Faxi goes in, the flash out by Mickey keeps him alive for a moment longer, drags Faxi into the tower, but ooh, curving the Sonic Wave around the corner. And then Splice have to try and hold on while Wonder comes through. It doesn't result in the tower, importantly. Remember, that's what Splice got up on the top side of the map to begin this whole play.
Does result in 2 kills apiece, though, as Faxi did fall at the end of the fight, and the rest of ROC were able to make their way away. I think Pride Stalker actually just backed up towards the top side.
He just got the recoil off up here.
It's interesting because he was spotted, and Senkux could have tried to chase him down, but obviously respecting Lee Sin's mobility in the jungle.
Yeah, that's the worst feeling, when you E over the wall to catch a Lee Sin and he just ward jumps the other way. That's why he was maybe trying to just catch out Shannon instead. Easier prey. Don't know how, like, lasers are against, like, birds, you know, like skeet shooting and all that kind of thing. Like clay pigeons, not real animals. No one condones that. Okay. I see you looking at me like that.
I just didn't quite know where the lasers were going. At the moment, they're going straight to Betsy's face. He flashes the wall. Laser's not effective against Syndra.
See, Lucian has laser guns.
That's true.
That's where they came from.
I didn't work out that. I'm sorry. I was too slow following your analogies.
You have good accuracy if you're slow on like clay pigeon shooting at that point. But at this point, Splice slow on the retreat out of mid lane, but Wonder is around to be able to hold on.
Splice are doing such a good job of out-macroing ROC at the moment and out-rotating them. They've got top lane tower, they got the first turret blood there, and now they're looking towards mid as well. But when ROC react, they say, okay, we don't need it yet. We've chunked it down with 4,000 gold ahead. We can play a slower game. We can look towards the Rift Herald. And ROC with this Xayah Rakan, which across this is across all teams for the EU LCS Summer, is a 3-1 record. ROC have one of those wins, I believe.
And I believe a loss to their name as well.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, they have had this Xayah and Rakan combination a couple of times now, and we're seeing it again out of them. This time it's on the losing end in the laning phase. They played it against the G2 substitute lineup against Sven and Mithy, who remained in the game for the first series of the split. And they did actually do well in the laning phase. Up against Sven and Mithy, the Xayah Rakan did very well, dominating the early game, but haven't really seen that all that much recently out of ROC.
They're, like, Hjarnan and Wadid have been stalwart members of ROC, but they're the sort of lane that if they fall behind, you just don't really see them that much throughout the game. They're very much tied to each other. Woodid will spend his laning phase with Hyun and just say, okay, guys, we'll sit down towards this bottom side. Whereas Splyce, if Kobe and Mickey fall behind, Mickey tends to be roaming around the map and looking for plays. And that's why in the first game we looked at his mid lane proximity, and he's actually one of the top supports for being near his mid laner in the early game.
And we know that Mickey has played the Bard, he's played a lot of Malzahar when it was the support champion, looking for that engage potential in other lanes. And that's why Braum isn't necessarily a surprising pick, because it fits absolutely within the meta and in sense of this game. But for Mickey, it isn't synonymous.
Well, engages all across the map here as Woodid uses the quickness, his price, so can kick back. Tempered Fate will come alive for the moment. Kobe manages to get out towards the backside. Hexagon Maiden was used by Faxi in the top lane as well, but he got burnt down and had to flash away. Wonder's looking for the chaser. No equalizer for him, but decides he doesn't want to flash to try and take down Faxi.
And this is the kind of matchup that we were looking at Camille being able to dominate later on. Well, now we've got past that level 11 mark for Faxi, but couldn't quite take that trade, as you were alluding to. Doesn't have the Trinity Force quite available. I believe after that point, that should be the moment that it opens up.
Betsy dodges the explosive cast, but can he dodge the culling? Manages to get away from a lot of it. Trashy force back. The turret's not going to fall. The unleashed power is enough. And Pride Stalker comes in as well. Senkus has to flash. Rocket make a superb play in the mid lane. It was all on Betsy's shoulders, and he came up huge.
Yeah, Trashy came into the lane and just threw the cast out, expecting Betsy to move back and away from the tower. Did not connect, and now Splyce. Oh, Senkus this one in.
Oh, Woodid used all of his mobility to go in, though. The Glacial Fisher there. Betsy's been caught up with the Electro Harpoon, tries to get in a knockback, but burns down. Splyce will get the mid lane tower. There's 7 kills to 4 up, and they lead by 5,000 gold.
And this is way better out of Wonder on this Rumble than in game 1. This is just better overall out of Splyce. You look at how they were playing. We talked about it being a different playstyle. Well, now maybe we're starting to see why they're bringing this playstyle out. Wonder is being very active, moving lane to lane, appearing at the right time, moving into the fights and getting the damage down. And now it turns into a bottom tower as well for Splyce. They've cracked all of the outer towers so far without Rocket responding with any buildings of their own.
And there's an Infernal Drake for them as well. They didn't want the Rift Tower. They will want this Infernal Dragon. 3 towers, an Infernal Drake, the Baron on the cards as well, of course, because you have the Callista, you've got the Lucian. So quick, you can take that massive buff later on in the game. And Senkus, even just by himself, is forcing Pride Stalker away.
Yeah, Pride Stalker realized there was nothing more to gain from being around the dragon again. Callista, just with that Ren damage, is so much more than a Smite can output here. So Betsy, maybe he was, you know, trying to draw in Trashy, fake that he was going back out, but Trashy with a very early cask didn't quite work out for him on this one. Of course, that was the start of this fight. Splyce would end up bringing Wonder to the fight. You can see him running in from the base, but Rocket in the live picture did just even up a tower for themselves. As we watch Splyce continue to close this out, we did not really respecting some of the mobility that was coming from Senkus himself.
Even there, though, even if you respect the mobility, you shouldn't use both of your shields and then go in. Use one, go in, so you can then jump back out, but just not on the best play from him, and you can see Betsy perhaps a little bit perturbed by that all round. As you say, Rocket have got a tower, still 5,000 gold lead for Splyce, and they're setting up vision around this river and around the Baron now.
Perturbed. I really need to work on my vocabulary. Otherwise, you're going to just show me up.
I just have a
all of these long
in all
words.
honesty, I've got a set of words that I've written on a Google document that I look at every now and again. And whenever I have a word that I can't think of stuff, I just look up Google synonyms for it. It's the bonus of having a second monitor that I can switch to anything on.
That's preparation for that. Maybe that needs to go.
Do you want me to give you some more? Huge,
what's a
massive, colossal, monumental, gargantuan, enormous, vast, immense, prodigious,
now
mammoth,
you give
tremendous,
it,
hefty, titanic.
That is a gross number of words.
Very nice. Now Splyce are going to go for the Baron. They've got a huge amount of damage to take this one down. They're absolutely decimating it, devastating it, dismantling it.
You just used all of your words.
Rocket are coming forward. Pride Stalker looking to dissuade them from it for the time being. And Splyce, distracted by Rocket, will just back away.
I thought Rocket were about to start the Baron there. I was like, okay, don't get tempted in by that. Wonder does have TP available, as does Faxi at this point, and it's Wonder that has the level advantage. 14 to Faxi's 12. Splyce still looking to go aggressive, but no flash on Trashy makes it a little more tricky in this middle lane. Betsy has his flash.
this is the thing, though, for ROC. They can still harass down. They've got good poke from the Syndra, of course, and Faxi eventually will get to a point where he can split into this Rumble. At the moment, he's nowhere near that. Leandri's and Zonya's completed onto Wonder. Only that Trinity Force on Faxi, but eventually, 40 minutes later, he will be able to split push. Camille, one of the best late-game split pushes there is.
And that's the thing, is like Camille was intended to be a champion that kind of was a bruiser, a little bit of a split pusher, a little bit of a team fight, but turns out just really strong, at least pre-nerfs, when it comes to both team fighting and split pushing. So we have to now see, after some nerfs that took her out of competitive play and then a couple of tweaks now to bring her back into competitive play, just how strong Camille is. From the support role in a melee support meta, we saw effectiveness yesterday from Fnatic. For those of you wondering, they did then complete the duo recall.
I saw it.
As Kianan started, and then I think
Woodid actually pinged himself, saying, please assist me, and Kianan realized it and went across and back with him. The first time I ever played the Rakan Xayah bot lane, my Xayah backed away before me. And I went to try and back on him, but I didn't know how to do it. So I was just right-clicking on the Xayah, and then I question mark pinged her when she left. So she's like, why didn't you help me? Why didn't you help me? And obviously, you have to press B. You have to actually initiate a back yourself on top of the Xayah. It's the reason I'm not in LCS, Stress, right there.
That's
mechanical misplays.
You know, G2, they were scouting, they saw that play and just thought, no.
Oh, here comes the equalizer. ROC looking to try and get a mid-lane tower. And here comes the Venostorm as well. Great explosive cast to knock him back. The Price Stalker kicks him away as well. Now Splice are fighting on two different fronts. Price Stalker tries to jump away, but he's not going to be able to escape from Splice. Baxi jumps the wall. Price Stalker falls. So does Betsy, and Splice take two.
One of the reasons why Splice utilizes Gragas pick so much is once you get out of the early portion of the game, Trashy starts showing up very effective, utilizing explosive cask, double cask, manages to get Roccat 2 kills on that fight, and now with no smite for Roccat, Splice turn towards the Baron. They have the Kalista. Faxi's going to execute. Doesn't even matter at this point. It's just soaking up time. There's a rend here for Kalista. There should be no way that Kianan and Woodid can actually steal this away.
They are just trying to harass down Splice, but I think they will just retreat. There we are. Jumps away with the grand entrance into the battle dance. And this will be the Baron for Splice. We saw it be their downfall in game 1. Will it have the same bad omen for them here?
Well, this is Roccat not respecting equalizer from the side. Trashy body slam flash into the cask. Betsy even died going the opposite way in this fight because he tries to get further damage out. Pride Stalker utilizes him as an escape route and unfortunately keeps him close enough to the fight that Splice end up carrying through on the last 2 kills. Then up to Baron. We don't need to see that chase happen.
I actually want to look at Woodid in that last fight as well. I mean, he didn't do much damage. Senkos didn't actually do any damage in that last fight. It wasn't even needed because of that great equalizer. But Woodid tried to jump onto Wonder and just mispositioned his grand entrance. Wasn't able to get the charm off, then had to flash back into Mickey to try and charm him up. With a champion he's got 100% win rate on thus far, he's actually really struggling in this game to make the plays that he needs to help Roccat get ahead.
And you have to look at a lot of that must come from the early game sense that Roccat have been playing from behind, but now he wants to go.
There's the double charm. Senkos going to jump the wall. Velastor comes out. Kianan isolated in the back line. Price Stalker's going to jump away as well. Cobby gets Woodid down. Faxi's in the middle of them all. That's a double for Cobby. Price Stalker's not going to be able to escape from Senkos. 4 kills to none in favor of Splice, and they're looking for one more. Trashy with the barrel. Oh, get close enough. Mickey won't be able to get there either. Betsy does escape.
This time with the Baron buff, Splice very effective in the fight, and then now with the Baron buff to push down the towers. Mid inhibitor likely to fall from this. 20 seconds remaining on Pride Stalker and Faxi, and that means that Splice have a lot of time to make sure they can secure as much as they want here. They've just been ahead for the last 10 to 15 minutes of this game, and it means that Roccat have tried to make plays, tried to make fights happen, but unfortunately, Splice have been ready and able to fight much better than in game 1.
All comes back to that early game as well. Both teams, when they've had a lead, have been able to close out incredibly effectively. This was Roccat getting slightly caught out and then looking to make the play. Senkos with great positioning.
Well, we did, looking for the aggressive play onto Trashy and the rest of Splice, but unfortunately, there was no damage to follow him. Faxi came in, but Faxi was then isolated himself. 1 versus 3. Senkok's able to take down Pride Stalker. Betsy manages to get away just because of the stun on the tail end here. Otherwise, Trashy Would have been hammering that Q, try to get that slow. It wasn't quite enough. But unfortunately, 1 minute left of the hammering that Splice are going to put on the base for Rocket right now. It's just about an 11,000 gold lead for the Splice team.
It's pretty devastating, and Splice can look towards Mountain Drake as well if they want. Faxi pushing up in this bottom lane will get collapsed on by Splice. Eventually he realizes he shouldn't be in that position anymore. Wonder's actually going to get caught out. There's the charm, there's the unleashed power, there's the shutdown forwarded.
Good shutdown. There was no Zhonya's available on Wonder, so that gold now getting split amongst the Rocket team will slow down the last minute that we were talking about on this Baron buff for Splice. They will need an advantageous fight for themselves in order to realistically take it to rock out further. You can see Jeeves, General Jeeves.
I didn't tell my droid to be there. Get the droidicus. that's a thing, right, in Star Wars?
Yeah.
Your Star Wars.
It was closer to like Phantom Menace than anything with the droidicus, if I'm being honest.
Misa.
Honestly, it like when it was Clone Wars and that, you started having those super battle droids, the big ones that...
Oh, yeah.
The ones that looked like less cool, but shot better.
I don't think the Empire's really ever had anything that shoots in a straight line.
No,
Look at Stormtroopers. At the moment, the only thing shooting in a straight line is Senkux on this Lucian. 3-0-2, very much a carry for his team this game alongside Kobe. Both of them have played exceptionally well, and they were the members we said needed to step up for Splice if they were going to take this victory, and they've done exactly that. 10,000 gold lead at the 30-minute mark, and Rockat are looking absolutely rocked to their very core.
Although Hyanon and Wadid are finding the time to be cute in the bottom lane, apparently.
You've got to
there were a couple of
make
ahs coming out from our audience.
You've got to make time for this sort of stuff. It's like when I was working in hospitals and we did night shifts, they'd say, our lecturers would say to us, before a night shift starts, you should empty your bucket. So it means you should actually Wonder's going to jump on in the bottom lane.
I don't even know whether I want to hear the end of that.
That's a kill for Betsy. They emptied a huge amount of damage onto him. Betsy's actually caught off towards the top side of this. It isn't anything bad. It's a good little story. We'll get to it after this fight. Betsy's actually going to try and execute up here as Senkux does come in. Wonder gets the kill.
Yeah, hadn't lasted long enough. Of course, that Leandri's ticked after just... So is it a metaphorical
It's
bucket?
a metaphorical thing. So you have this bucket of stresses and worries that are built up on you throughout the day.
Please don't put me in a bucket.
Okay, Alan's going to get jumped on as well. Featherstorm does come out, and Mickey's going to try and get the concussive blows onto Pridestalker, who jumps his way away as well. They just don't want me to tell this story.
No, it's too late now. We're just never going to know what's in the mystery bucket at this point. While Splice are desperately trying to collect themselves enough of a lead here. It's a significant one for now. 10,000 gold. They're waiting on Baron to spawn in like 1 minute 30, so maybe you do have the time.
Okay, basically it means you need to reset. Okay. So what you do is you've got this bucket of stresses and worries, and you say, okay, I need to reset. So you eat some food. You make sure you've relieved yourself. You have a quick sit down for 5 minutes. You text your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your significant other that you love them. And that's what I was saying. Like, even in the midst of a war on Summoner's Rift, Hyanon and Wadid found time to tell each other that they love them down in that bottom lane. Thank you all. It was a magical journey for me as well. Hyanon and Wadid will get that red buff.
This audience is nice. Last week they booed me.
Well, yeah, that's because you've never watched Dragon Ball Z.
But neither of you, and you told me that
I know all about Goku. I know everything about Goku.
That's the one with the trading cards, right?
Yes,
and the Shadow Realm.
It's the Beyblades.
And they digivolve.
They use the Beyblades.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, we're going to get so much blame for
There's
that.
going to be so many mad tweets.
Might as well just do Game of Thrones spoilers in there as well.
No.
Okay, Hyanon's going to jump over to empty your bucket, go back towards the bottom lane. You get there quicker, helps you reset for the next game, and that's what Rockat need to do because they are 10,000 gold behind. They are looking to try and find a way back into this game. They are scaling up. You've got crit build out of Hyanon. That's one of the most effective Zaya builds of them all, and Callista falls off the later you get into the game.
Right, and that build that you're talking about, effective in the late game, because of the additional cooldown reduction you've got the crit chance in there as well. So it means you get multiple stuns in the fight. You can blow people up very quickly and multiple times, and that really is where a lot of that danger comes from. Holding even on CS as well, down in kills and assists, but when you look at that power level, I'm just teasing. I'm
not gonna do it. We saw Rocket be quite far behind last week against Fnatic and be able to take out a win. Now they're going to try and contest this Baron as Splice started up. Here comes Pricetalker, jumps in, the charm comes out. Kiana doing work, having to jump back with it. Pricetalker's going to fall first. Here comes Faxi as well, though. Hexagon making this blocked by the Zhonya's. Great play by Wonder, and now Mickey joins the fray. Trashy jumps in. Senkux doing absolute work on the back line of this fight. Betsy takes one, but he's going to fall as well. Splice with a 4-for-1 around the Baron.
And that's got to be enough for Splice to take the game right here, because that was a clean fight. Equalizer hit just about every member of Rocket that came through. Second Baron will now go over to Splice, and this is exactly what they were looking for in the second game here. It was a rough game one out of Splice. They tried a similar composition again. This time it's worked out way better for them.
12,000 gold ahead, 18 kills to 7, and with fights like this, Splice are looking to take game 2 of this series.
Yeah, Wonder, look at this equalizer. Pretty much down the line of Rocket players at that point. Pricetalker dies. Splice not even focusing on the Baron anymore because they know that the fight is theirs. They've won it already. Trashy once again. Body slam flash. Woody tried to jump onto Kianan to save maybe a little bit more damage coming through, but it wasn't enough. Senkux able to clean up alongside Kobe, and Splice take the Baron.
Trashy has been very on point throughout this game as well. Look at that damage coming out from Kobe. Really stepping up to the mark. Betsy, you would expect Syndra to do a lot of damage if she gets the Unleashed power down. Just very, very strong play by Splice. And actually, you can see Faxi there. Wasn't really involved in the fight. He's been pushing down towards this bottom lane. And there comes the equalizer. That's not going to save you. Senkux is dominating. 6-0-3 on this Lucian. In picks and bans, we doubted him. We said he's only gone 2-5-2. Well, he has proven us entirely wrong with this scoreline.
Yeah, this has been a lot better out of Senkux. Was able to get the early game to go in his favor. Had a lot of help from Trashy, from Mickey, the rest of the team coming towards that middle lane, as we talked about Splice doing very frequently. And now Faxi for Rocket has been caught out multiple times by multiple members of Splice as well. Splice have grouped on the side lane and mid lane very effectively, and Rocket haven't been able to deal with that.
Still 2 minutes on this Baron buff, and Rocket just do not want to fight outside of their base. Will they defend the inhibitor tower? That is the big question, or will they just back away? Still one man down for the next 9 seconds as Splice looks to push forward towards this first inhibitor tower. The wave is cleared relatively quickly by Betsy and by Kianan. And Splice will not defend it for too long as Wonder splits up to top.
Yeah, Wonder's going to be able to get that tower quite quickly here with no Baron buff on Wonder, as he must have dropped in that exchange. Faxi wants to try and trade against him.
Level 16 to level 18 in favor of Wonder here. There's the Zhonya's, but Betsy joins it. Inhibitor tower's fallen in the bottom lane. They're going to lose the inhibit anyway, so they say, let's take a fight. They get the kill on Wonder. They get one trade for a tower and an inhibitor.
So this time, Splice, I mean, they'll be happy with the fact they get an inhibitor just at the cost of Wonder's life. Wonder does have his TP up, but it's not necessarily that integral right now. 44 seconds is just under the duration of the Baron buff remaining for the rest of Splice. So Splice, if they get a pick here on Rocket, that would basically open the base back up, but it is tough without 5 members to know that you're going into a fight with the numbers advantage for Splice.
Rocket have struggled so much this game to actually get waves pushing towards towers and be able to take down these neutral objectives. This is only their second tower of the game. They are 13,000 gold behind. And Splice have just been absolutely dominating. They're actually going to look to catch Faxi out once again as he continues just to push. There's Mickey. Gusset Blows blocks him up. That's just a dead Camille.
Yeah, that's just an easy pick. Mickey, knowing exactly the route that Faxi's going to take out of that lane once he tries to escape. And just gets an easy block.
All of the Splice boys just gathered in the top lane and said to Faxi, stop right there. Thank you very much. We'll take this kill. And what we really, really want is that Nexus as well to equalize this series.
When you look at it, though, it's easy to tell. Kobe right now is definitely the scary Splice. Outputting out a lot of damage in these fights, able to take so much to the Rocket lineup. From champion profile pictures, we get to see the Trashy as Ginger Spice.
Yep, that's true.
Playing the Gragas. It's an easy one.
Who would you say is Sporty Splice?
I don't know.
Lucian.
Yeah.
Usually has the soccer skin, of course. So
that's true.
Striker Lucian. At the moment, Splice are doing a very good job of just closing out this game, taking their time about it. A positive Baron power play, a lot better than their one in game one, of course. Where
way better than that one in game one where they got literally nothing other than the Baron.
And they are looking for their second inhibitor of the game. Faxi's down towards the bottom side. All 5 members of Splice are here. Trashy takes a dark spear to the face. There's the charm on towards Wonder. That's another kill. Rocket with the Feather Storm, perhaps looking for a little bit more here as Faxi's coming up to join the fight. Trashy gets hit with the Sonic Wave. Pride Stalker, you're going to feel it in your heart. The call of the Q was not strong enough as Rocket retreat for the time being.
Once again, though, this does slow Splice down. And Rocket are no strangers to playing from behind. I remind you, game 2 of Rocket versus Fnatic. At one point, they were down 11,000 gold. And Faxi was at one point 0 and, well, at least had 12 deaths. He's only at 5. That means so much more. Yeah, I know, but the 13th death was the one that won them the game.
That's
because,
true. Okay.
see, that's why that was a good death. He managed to absorb Soaz and Reckless out on the side lane, and Rocket won the rest of the game. Splice are giving opportunities back now over to Rocket to kind of edge their way back into the game.
That they are. That they are. Splice still 20 kills to 9 up, 15,000 gold in the lead, and they have broken the base of Rocket. That bottom lane is going to continue to push in. There's a minute on the next Baron, which you have to assume Splice are waiting for. I want to bring attention to the support matchup once again. It's something we talked about in Picks and Bans in game 1. We did say perhaps I can challenge against one of the best supports in Europe at the moment in the form of Mickey, and at the moment it's Mickey who is looking like the better player. So hey Mickey, he's playing so far in this game.
That's not a Spice Girls song.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, I thought
it
you were
not
still on
meant
that
to
one.
be?
No, it's fine. I know.
I don't know that many Spice Girls songs.
What
I'm sorry. I know. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. And I want, if you want to be my lover.
Isn't that the same song?
Probably. I can't remember.
Pretty sure
was
that's
15
the same
years
song.
ago.
Okay, that's fair.
Splice are going to push down
You're
the
just
mid
a
lane
wannabe
here.
right now at this point. And the key thing that I thought you were taking us to, I thought we were getting there with Mickey, is nearly got Stoneplate finished as well on this Braum, alongside the Locket of the Iron Solari. Here's the fight.
Gets the knock up onto Woodid, who tried to jump in. Great play. They're going to get the root on the back line, though. Senkos goes godlike. There's the equalizer as well. Betsy gets knocked up twice and taken down once. Double kill for Senkos. Splice are looking to close this one out. They've had enough of this waiting game. Yarnan's dead. Kobe dominating. Kobe, not Kobe. He's in the NALCS. They're looking for that mid lane inhibitor tower alongside the inhibitor and perhaps the game.
Yeah, it should be the game here with 3 members of Rocket being dead. Baron does spawn, but that doesn't really matter right now. Splice will be able to take down both Nexus towers, take down the Nexus. They're taking us to game number 3.
Splice look like they've been able to put all the pieces together in this game. They worked out the combination that works best for them, and they are going to take us to a game 3, 1-on-1 between Rocket and Splice.
That was better out of Splice, the early game presence that we saw. Their carries were enabled through Senkux, Kobe, and Wonder. A lot better than we saw in the first game of this series. And I think even though it was that departure of style than we've seen from Splice in recent times, it was quite convincing. As soon as Wonder started being able to show up to these fights where the Camille wasn't necessarily keeping him lane like the Gnar was, I think that's where Splice actually looked very effective.
Very convincing from them. That's the sort of performance we expect from a top-level team in the group, and at the moment they are playing like first or second in Group B, like a team that can challenge for those world spots. I actually am very impressed from both of the teams in these first 2 games. Like Splice in game 2, Rocket in game 1. You were smirking a little bit there.
I wasn't ready for the...
Oh, you weren't?
I was like starting my tie.
Well, in the break, we should look up some more Spice Girls songs to make sure we're ready for the next game. Splice have answered back with a win. Let's send it to our analysts for a closer look.
Thank you very much, well, the host and the analyst. But I'm going to attempt. I'm going to do my best. But I do agree with you, Medic, the fact that both teams have actually left a very good impression in these games. But obviously, Splice, they came out on top in this one. And if we look at Picks and Bans, you said not a fan of the Rumble in the first game, obviously, because it didn't yield that many results and maybe a change in the jungle. Trashy opted for Gragas in this one, and the Rumble stayed. So how did the game or the other picks influence the dynamic of what that Rumble could do in the lane?
Yeah, I think what happened in the first game was that you had a losing matchup in the top lane, and then you had no engage for the rest of your team fighting comp. So you just have Faxi putting down pressure in the side lane, and then there's nothing you can do with the rest of your team, because what you really want to do is to force a 5 versus 4 with the rest of your team when Faxi's in a side lane. Well, this time they drafted all the engage in the world. Well, not all of it, but they had a Gragas and they had a Braum together with a Kalista, so you have all the tools to start off a fight when you want to, and that's the key to unlocking this game.
How does the mid pressure come into play? Lucian can obviously do a lot more up against the Syndra in terms of pressure than Taliyah in the last matchup.
Yeah, Taliyah is more of the supportive pick that wants to help out your side laners, and when you already have a losing matchup in the top lane and somewhat of a even matchup in bottom lane, I think the Lucian is a stronger pick, because Taliyah wants to facilitate your other lanes to get them rolling, and when you don't have a lanes that's already snowballing, I think Lucian is a stronger pick, because he can just put down so much pressure in mid, which is exactly what we saw.
Yeah, Sankux, he went absolutely off in that game. We also are looking very intently at the bottom lane, knowing that we have Xayah and Rakan, and especially what Didu has shown that he is incredibly proficient on that Rakan, but they weren't able to create all the openings there. Was it the Braum and a Kalista on the other side, or what happened that they couldn't get the upper hand?
I had very high expectations for this duo lane of Rocket. We did see, though, that the Braum came out immediately as soon as the Rakan was locked in for Rocket, so that meant that Splice had a plan, which showed it throughout this game. The bottom lane fight here in this beginning looks like it's going in the favor of Rocket, but here comes Wunder having TP'd from behind as the Rumble, and they're able to turn this fight, as well as with Sankux coming in on the Lucian. And after this fight, there's a 2.5k gold advantage for Splice.